Tonight on NewsHour Final.
Spending spree. The minority government throws out tax breaks and money in its first budget. Falling debris. Part of an airplane falls from the sky and crushes a car. Damage control. Business owners try to stay ahead of today's high winds. And in sports, Montreal fights for one more game against Carolina.
Now from Global Calgary, NewsHour Final with Linda Olson.
Good evening. Linda is off tonight. It looks like you could soon have a little extra cash in your pocket. The Conservatives' first budget is full of tax cuts, 29 separate tax reductions. And you'll feel the effects, especially if you spend a lot or you have young children. The highlights include a GST cut, the first since it was created in 1991. There's a clawback of income tax cuts promised by the Liberals, but there is a list of new or improved tax credits and grants for everyone from employees to seniors. With more on all of that, here's Global's Jacques Barbeau.
On July 1st, Canadians will be celebrating more than just the country's birthday, because that's the day the Conservative government will cut the GST by 1%, from 7 to 6%.
In this budget, we deliver real tax relief for Canadians. Tax relief people can see, tax relief that makes a difference, tax relief they can count on. Mr. Speaker, that's the bottom line of the budget.
The bottom line for parents, they'll also be getting their first child care checks July 1st, $100 for every child under the age of 6. Not surprisingly, tax cutting is the major theme in Stephen Harper's first budget, saving taxpayers almost $20 billion over the next 2 years. When you file your income tax, anyone who has a job will get to claim a new $500 employment tax credit, rising to $1,000 the following year. But the Conservatives are not keeping all the Liberal tax cuts. Last year, the first tax bracket dropped from 16 to 15%. Now it will rise back halfway to 15.5%. And there's a slew of tax credits in this budget, too, mainly aimed at middle-class Canadians. Hockey mums and dads get a break to pay for their kids' sports programs. And there's credits for seniors, students, apprentices, and transit users. Big and small business are also getting tax relief, the corporate tax rate dropping from 21 to 19%. The Conservatives are also going on a mini spending spree, sticking to a few priority areas. Law and Order gets $1.4 billion, puts 1,000 new cops on the street, builds more prisons, helps victims of crime, and hires more border guards, as well as giving them firearms. Canada's military getting more support from the home front, $5.3 billion, helping pay for 23,000 new troops. Farmers will get more relief, $1.5 billion, and Canada's highways will have fewer potholes. The Tories committing more than $5 billion for infrastructure. For Global News, this is Jacques Barbeau reporting.
Now, the GST cut in today's budget is fueling our already hot economy. Global's Doug Vason has more now on how Calgarians feel about the Conservatives' first budget.
Derek and Adela Jablonski feel like they just hit the jackpot. The parents of 4 children, they are currently building a new home in Tuscany. The GST tax cut is going to save them thousands of dollars.
All the savings which we can make only on the GST, we can afford new appliances. That's one good thing.
Add in the child care money promised in today's budget, and it's no wonder they are searching out high-end appliances.
2 small children under age of 6, that will add another, I don't know, 2,400, if that's what Mr. Harper promised. That'd be a lot of money for us. We can save.
All of which confirms what U of C economist Frank Atkins thinks of the first federal Conservative budget in 13 years. Money saved will be money well spent.
This is the great benefit of lowering any tax. The great benefit is that it may be a little bit of money to me and a little bit of money to my neighbor, but it is $4 billion. It's $4 billion that is no longer in the government hands. It's $4 billion now in the private sector hands. The private sector can decide what to do with it, and this is the way an economy should operate.
Atkins isn't likely to argue with the Harper government's first budget. He supervised the Prime Minister's master thesis. But that same thought is echoed throughout the Calgary business community.
Why wouldn't it be good news? I mean, it has to be anything that's going to save the customer anything. is good news for retail, for anything.
So a dollar saved is a dollar spent.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The average vehicle nowadays, you're running around $30,000 mark. So the 1% is, you know, it's a significant saving.
Taylor says it likely won't mean selling many more $100,000 sports cars, but it will mean more sales overall, with some savvy customers deciding to hold off pending today's GST cut.
Overall, anything that's good for the customer, it's good for business.
For Global News, this is Doug Vason reporting.
Premier Ralph Klein is giving the budget a positive rating overall. He says he's impressed with what the Harper government has come up with.
It's basically a good budget. As I said, it's in line with what the federal Conservatives offered Canadians during the election campaign, so they're not backing off any promises.
Now, the Premier says he doesn't like the fact the federal Conservatives have scrapped a $5 billion funding deal for Aboriginals. And the government is also disappointed that a major farm income support program is going to be scrapped rather than amended. And the Canadian dollar soared to a new 28-year high today. It cracked 90 cents U.S. for the first time in decades. The loonie climbed more than a half a cent and closed the day at 90.41 cents U.S.
You're watching NewsHour Final on Global Calgary.
A Calgary family is homeless and in mourning after a fatal fire in Arbor Lake early today. Neighbors heard an explosion about 3:30 a.m. and then came outside to find a house on fire. Neighbors say the flames were shooting 200 meters into the air. 5 people sleeping inside, a mother, father, 2 children, and their nanny escaped unharmed. But another family member who lived in the basement was missing. Fire investigators had to bring down the remaining walls before anyone could go inside to check for a body. And late this afternoon, the worst was confirmed.
The whole house was destroyed, so every floor kind of came down on top of each other, and we were able to find the body inside. Well, we found it, was actually in the basement.
The cause of the fire is still being investigated. The 5 surviving family members are staying with friends and other family. A drunk driver who killed a young boy has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. The crash happened when a truck crossed the center line and hit 2 vehicles on Highway 1A near Chestermere in November of 2004. 8-year-old Lucas Witt was killed in that crash. 4 other people in his family were also injured. 66-year-old Jorge Reckenbaron had been drinking with co-workers before the crash. He was convicted of dangerous driving and impaired driving causing death. The defense sought a conditional sentence, but the judge sent him to jail as a message to anyone who drinks and drives.